Hello, welcome to the North Bank Podcast. I'm your host, Holly, and I'm joined by Steph and Chris. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi,
Hello, mate.
Well, it's still the international break as such, and very few things to talk about Arsenal-wise, so I figured we'd have a nice, sensible, adult chat about all the other teams in the division.
All right, I'll go then.
I can't see this going wrong at all. A few little Arsenal news items to get out of the way. Obviously, international break, just referenced it. I think apart from the Calafiori injury scare, we've kind of come away unscathed. If anything, players might have come back a bit buoyed, thinking of Martin Ødegaard with his 3 assists yesterday for Norway. Also, Gabriel's importance to the Brazil team was highlighted in his absence. We are currently recording this. I need to kind of give context, provide context, as Arsenal women are trying to claw back a two-goal deficit. Have we scored again?
They have just scored again, so they've now brought it back to 2-2.
Brilliant. So beating Liverpool 4-0 at the weekend was good rehearsal for this. Mm-hmm. I know the first half we'd kind of dominated, but hadn't made the breakthrough. But that's 2 quite quick-fire goals there. How long's left?
3 minutes.
Oh,
that's 49 minutes.
There's
that
like
second
40
goal.
minutes
Brilliant.
left.
Okay, so enough time to get 5.
Yeah. It's amazing what playing on a decent pitch does.
Yes. Although I think Real Madrid beat Barcelona at the weekend, they're no mugs either. So 2-0 up on the night, good. But don't do what the men's team would do now and sit back and try and control the game. Just bloody well go for it. This chat will be redundant by the time anybody's listening because you'll already know what the score was. So maybe I should tone it down. Any observations of the senior team players representing their countries over the international break?
Well, just that. The Hayland Youth Academy is clearly doing wonders because Max Dowman scored for the under-19s?
No, under-17s.
Under-17s, sorry.
He actually scored 1 and assisted 2 in 2 games.
Brilliant, there you go.
Have you seen his goal?
Yes, the one where he sort of dribbles through and then just stabs it home at the end.
He's only got about 5 players around him.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Ethan Nwaneri making his debut for the under-21s and scored the Ethan Nwaneri goal.
Yeah, trademark already at 7 and 18.
Brilliant.
He's 18 now. He's 18.
And as we said last time, because it happened before, but Mars Lewis Skelly scored his first goal for England. And even in the second game, he was good. He was,
Did he play? Was he kind of repurposed in midfield a little bit more than the first game?
Well, only in the sense that Latvia were set up even more defensively than Albania in the first game, possibly, meaning that he could step in and kind of be at the base of the horseshoe of death, essentially, as England tried to pass it around. But his passing was a bit more incisive, and he was one of the brightest sparks. He's just so good in close control under pressure. Like, I don't know, he's the most... I heard someone, I can't remember who it was, describe him as the most pep player that's come through our academy. Just wants the ball at feet, happy to take it under pressure.
Seeing as we're talking about other clubs sensibly, maybe a bit like Dembele from Spurs, he had very close control. I mean, he was probably a more kind of forward-thinking dribbler, perhaps. I mean, we've not seen enough games from Miles Lewis Skelly to judge what kind of player he is. I mean, what position do you think suits him best?
There's an interesting one. I was thinking today about whether or not we push him into midfield and whether he becomes part of a 2 if we ever wanted to play that 4-2-3-1, that he could be part of a double pivot because he has got that athleticism and ability to turn on transition. So he's got all the right kind of CV for that role, and it's exciting. It's great to see that we've got so many options with him. He could stay at left back, but so
long as he doesn't become a Maitland-Niles kind of character.
It.
No, I doubt it as well. There's another level there, isn't there? But he could play as a 6, he could play as an 8, he could play as a left back, he could probably play as a wide left, more advanced role. I mean, I don't know. Any position along the left hand side is kind of his for the taking.
He wants it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as we've said about the fact that we invert the left back generally anyway, so he's kind of de facto midfielder when we've got the ball. So it's kind of he's there halfway there already, isn't he, as a midfielder?
And himself and Rice came off after 79 minutes in their second game, but we're not playing till Tuesday, so there's a nice long break for them anyway. So it is not like too depleting on their energy reserves or kind of wearing their legs down too much before the next block of games. I had Dan Wanieri scored 10 minutes into his under-21s debut. Max Dowman scored for the under-17s. I remember he's just turned 15 like 3 months ago. He's playing way above himself and he's doing it on the international stage. The issue will be getting him to sign. I think demonstrating or highlighting a path to the first team will be crucial in that. We can point to Wanieri and Mars Lewis-Skelly. If you're good enough, you'll get into the team as evidence that, because he can't sign a professional contract till he turns 17, and we lost Chido Obi and Aidan Heaven to United in a similar way. They obviously didn't back themselves enough, and Aidan Heaven's probably been vindicated somewhat, I guess, because he's played a lot more minutes than he would have done at Arsenal at this stage. He had a bad injury, I don't know, potentially a bad injury, but I think he's going to be okay. Chido, I think he went for the money, and not much we can do that. Wanieri was offered like 3-4 times what we were offering him by Chelsea, and he just wanted to stay with us. Hopefully Max Dowman sees that. I like to hear Declan Rice, the way he's talking about taking him under his wing. I think that's, come on, can you think of a better player at the club that you'd like to be mentoring Max Dowman? Good. Keep Declan Rice there, keep him in his ear, because I think you can sign schoolboy terms and agree the contract at the same time, but you can't officially start that contract until your 17th birthday. So David Ornstein was saying end of 2025, beginning of 2026, before we really can be a little more confident about him remaining with us. But he brought him to the summer warm weather training camp at 14, Arteta loves him.
Clearly.
And he would be getting minutes if he was legally allowed to this season. There's no doubt about that. He'd be on the bench, certainly. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he stays. Charles Watts put out a bit of news today saying that the likelihood is that Saka will get on the bench. It depends on how training goes in the next 7 days, that he'll get on the bench against Fulham, which is great because, bring him on for 10 minutes at the end of that game, perhaps.
As per your rota.
I just don't. Yes, I've written it. You've got to think it to make it happen. So there you go. And I read another headline today that really quite excited me, and it was from the Standard. It's called the Standard now. It was the Evening Standard, and journo Simon Collins, I think. And it was a headline: Arsenal look to Real Madrid stadium development. I thought it was great. I read absolutely nothing of substance in it at all.
Must be the international break if there's stadium expansion talk. It'll never happen.
It's still exploratory. It is going to happen.
No.
It is. Steph, as I predicted, the Angel would become an Arsenal anthem. We will have a bigger stadium.
No. The problem is the transport links around the ground, because TfL don't want to pay for it and Arsenal don't want to pay for that much more than expanding the stadium.
No, but there's a larger population around the ground than there was 25 years ago, and that makes it a significant difference in terms of what capacity we're allowed to have. Yes, there'd need to be a redevelopment for Holloway Tube Station, but listen, it will happen. The Cronkies can't afford for it not to happen.
Yes and no, because
you look at United with a 100,000 seater stadium.
Yes, but
the circus tent.
This is United. This is United that even now, really, with the terrible season that they're having in the league, which I'm sure we'll talk about, their ground is pretty much sold out every time. Okay, because they've got that history of the 90s and 2000s and the explosion of the Premier League that created that big draw. We have a couple of games go a bit iffy in the league, bearing in mind we're sort of second. All of a sudden, there's a flood of tickets available on the ticket exchange.
beforehand anyway. Like London-based as well, will attract a lot more tourists also to pick up any slack. I mean, I don't know, there's 70,000+ on the waiting list for Arsenal season tickets. I know I'm like, I've gone from like 74,000 down to 17,000 in 8 seasons or 9 seasons, something like that. 10 maybe longer. I don't know.
Oh, well, is this one you put down for the boys growing up?
No, this is long before they rocked up. This is the daughter.
Yeah,
when she was about 6, and she's 19 now, 7. Go. Steph's looking at the screen.
Arsenal women 3, Real Madrid 0.
Oh,
Russo.
It's on.
Russo's
Russo
got 2. Wonderful.
Great.
excellent. Great. Good news. Okay, apart from more references to that game, let's park the Arsenal stuff for now. This podcast is focusing on the rest of the Premier League and how we think it's panning out, and in particular how it's panning out in relation to how we anticipated it panning out at the start. So the obvious one is if we all were told in August that we'd be sitting second, 12 points behind the leaders, we would, without any hesitation, have assumed that would have been Manchester City. So that's the first kind of surprise, if you like, shock, surprise. Great that Man City have capitulated. Bloody irritating that Liverpool have gone the other way. Just luck, pure luck. You can clip that one, Steph, and put it out for the Scousers. They're coming for me anyway, so I might as well give them put my head on a platter, put my grey head on a platter. That's a reference to being described as recording the podcast from my grave, which I thought was very funny.
I blame the camera on your
No, I look
laptop.
like this. I look like this.
He's
So
just generally sort of reanimated
people stare.
corpse.
People
Look.
stare.
Yeah.
Like, point, stare. Little kids cry. You know, it doesn't matter.
That dead man is walking, mummy.
I see dead people. I hear it all the
Yeah.
time.
There he is. There, look.
Right, okay, so I've got a couple of questions. First one, who gets top 5? It's the nice, easy one. Now, if you want a little rundown on the table, who gets top 5? Can we park numbers 1 and 2? Can we say that Liverpool and Arsenal will get top 2?
Mm-hmm.
Steph?
We're confident of top 2, are we?
Well, no, but I mean 2 of the positions. I don't think we're going to drop to 6th.
Teams.
Yeah, 2 of the teams. So if we say that 2 of the teams are Liverpool and Arsenal,
I think I might be more certain of the 3rd as well.
So Forest are currently 5 points clear of Chelsea.
I think Forest will do more than enough now to make it top 5. Yeah.
Goal difference is similar to Chelsea's. Ours is superior to all bar Liverpool's. So look, a rundown on the team. So Forest are in 3rd place on 54 points. Chelsea are in 4th place on 49. So it's a 5-point gap between 3rd and 4th. We have 9 games left. So a lot of points still. That's 27 points. And I mean, Chelsea aren't playing particularly well either. They've won 3 and lost 3 of their last 6 games, but 2 of those wins were Leicester and Ipswich at home. Manchester City are a further point behind that. They've only won 2 of their last 6 games. Newcastle are sitting on 47 points for one really big reason. I don't want them getting into the top 5. They're on the same points as Brighton, who have won 4 and drawn 1 of their last 5. So they're on a bit of a run, a bit of a roll. 2 points further back, Fulham and Aston Villa on 45 points. So they're only 3 points behind 5th. You know, Fulham and Aston Villa. And Aston Villa aren't on a particularly impressive run. They've won 2 of their last 3, but had failed to win 3 before that. Fulham have won 2 of their last 3. And then we've got Bournemouth on 44 points. So they're 4 points behind City, but they failed to win in 4. They're having a bad run at the worst time. And I saw someone describe them as a bit of a streaky team. They either do lots of wins in a row or lots of defeats in a row. So there's quite a lot. It's quite bunched. It's 5 points separating 4th and 10th. So, guys, you've had a bit of a heads up on this one. Steph, who's getting top 5 and why?
Liverpool, Arsenal, and I'm pretty sure Forest will secure that now. They're solid enough defensively, very good defensively, and will keep nicking their goals that they need to see them through. I had a look at the fixtures because I saw that sort of soup of teams that are there below from sort of Chelsea down, to see how their run-in was sort of affected. Newcastle's game in hand, and the fixtures that they've got coming up, I think City were the ones where I looked at their run and I thought they were kindest, if I'm honest. So I can see City. I've got them down as 4th, just as a prediction. And there's a really big game coming up on, I think it's May the 4th it's scheduled for. It's certainly sort of the first sort of weekend in May.
Be with you.
Newcastle and Brighton will be a big game because, like you say, Brighton really are in form. I thought they were having a really quite middling sort of season, but in the last few weeks have really picked up. And a bit like the counter you said to Bournemouth, where you hit the wrong bit of form at the wrong time. Well, Brighton have gone the other way. So that could be an interesting game that would change the way I think about it. But I just think they've won a trophy. Isak scored again for Sweden, got an assist. I think they'll be so buoyed by everything. I can see Newcastle making it. I can see Newcastle doing it.
Who gets the 5th? Who gets the final spot then?
Newcastle 5th.
Oh, is that it? So you're saying
Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, City, Newcastle.
Right, so Chelsea drop out.
I just think the Chelsea I saw. Now, don't get me wrong. Cole Palmer could come back into the team. I don't know what the prognosis is for Jackson, but if he's back for a few games, maybe there could be an uplift. But the Chelsea I saw us beat 1-0 in the last game out in the Premier League, that team's going to struggle, in the
quite
remainder.
insipid.
And they've got a few games that are tricky coming up. Again, I can't recall the fixtures.
You mapped out their last 4 games are against really difficult
Exactly,
opponents.
their last 4 games. Oh, I remember. Yeah, so United, Forest, City, Liverpool, wasn't it? Or Newcastle, Liverpool, something like that. Anyway, look, that's a killer run of games when you're out of form, and that's the Chelsea I saw. They did look, bereft, and injuries play a part. Cole Palmer not firing is going to make a huge difference. So
I think Jackson's back in training. I thought I saw that today somewhere.
But it could be too late. That swing is there. Like you say, their only 2 wins recently were against the bottom 3, and they're shocking. So I don't know. I think it might be a struggle. It's momentum at this point of the season sometimes, which carries you through, and Chelsea don't have it, but the likes of Newcastle, Forest, Brighton, possibly, certainly do. And that's why I thought, I looked at the table as well. I think from Fulham down, I wonder if those teams just aren't putting the big enough runs together of wins that they would probably need to overturn it. That's what I think.
Because we're talking about other teams, can I ask you then what your thoughts are on Aston Villa? That they've obviously found it difficult to balance or to juggle the Champions League, in which they've done extremely well, and the Premier League. Are they in a dangerous position?
Yeah.
Because they might not qualify for Europe unless they win the Champions League.
They're in a dangerous position to do both, because they're in a dangerous position in the sense that they could pounce either their form in the Champions League. Let's say they play well against PSG and it's a cup competition, in stranger things have happened, but they might beat PSG. I don't think they will. PSG are going to be obvious favourites to that. But let's say they do, and that momentum, look, Rashford, who I said was a player I didn't want Arsenal to go anywhere near because I didn't want that much of a project, he looks like he's 10 feet taller all of a sudden. Asensio playing regular football, class player, someone I would have happily had Arsenal go towards before, and it's just rejuvenated them.
Would the best thing for them be to lose to PSG?
Well, I mean,
because then it gives that focus for the last 7 games just on the Premier League.
if you were cold and could stand back and look at it, yeah, long-term projections, qualifying for Europe next season is going to be vitally important for them. You're a fan and you're the players. You want to go as far as you can.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you can go through against PSG, you can back yourself against anyone.
Look, all of those teams, actually not all of those teams, City, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, their models, because they've been in the Champions League, are in the Champions League, or have spent so much money, they need to be in the Champions League. We know about Man United's turnover is so high that actually they can survive without Champions League because they're just ridiculous. But I think, Villa, Newcastle and Chelsea definitely need that Champions League football. The other teams there or thereabouts, Brighton, look, it's all sort of bonus territory for them. Fulham, again, same sort of thing. Bournemouth, I'm sort of disappointed. I'd love to see Bournemouth in Europe. Something about that stadium that looks like a garden centre from the outside in Europe would just be incredible.
I can't see that Bournemouth team being together next season.
No, they are a club where the finances are such that Semenyo, selling him now, getting good money for him. I mean, he's a player that's going to cost... 40 million will be the opening gambit.
Well, yeah, he won't go for that, yeah.
I know, he'll go for more, but that's going to be the opening gambit. Even if they were a 45, 50, that will secure so much for
and you've got Kirkes, the fullback, who's been linked with Liverpool.
Hoyson, who was talked about.
He's got a 50 million euro buyout clause. He's going to go to Real Madrid.
That's crazy. But Aras Kepa, the keeper, is on loan from Chelsea.
That's right, yeah.
But he's either going to go back into Chelsea and try and lock down the first position, but I don't think he will. I think he'll go. But he's not theirs, ultimately.
And Patrick Kluivert's been...
not Patrick Kluivert, Justin
That's
Kluivert.
his dad, isn't it? Justin.
He must get that all the time.
Well, evidenced by me. But he's like their top scorer. He must be, because he's got a couple of hat-tricks, hasn't he? Did he have a penalty hat-trick in one game? Was it him that scored? But some of his goals have been pretty top drawer as well. Yeah. And it'll be a shame because they play really exciting football. We should have beaten them, though. Enough about that. Chris.
Yeah.
Who gets into the top 5 for you and why?
Well, rather boringly, I've got exactly the same.
Hang on.
4-0.
Score update.
4-2 on aggregate. Sorry, I was doing 4-2 on aggregate. 4-0. Sorry.
I'm just checking. It's
Arsenal
a hat-trick for Russo.
Woohoo!
I've got the same top in exactly the same order, in the same order as well. Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest. I think City will come in 4th, and I've got, unfortunately, Newcastle in 5th. I don't think Villa have got enough about them. I think they'll get into the sort of Europa place below, but I think that's it. Locked down. Chelsea, for all the reasons we've said, I just think they've just watching them as well, even with a sort of full strength team, I'm looking at them thinking, who's their leader? Chelsea, they don't really have a leader on the pitch. They just look like kind of assembled mercenaries, young mercenaries. Caicedo's not really leadership quality about him.
Can I jump in there? You've just reminded me. If I don't say it now, I'll forget it. You talked about leadership. Have either of you seen the interview that Jed Spence has done with someone?
Yeah, with his shades on. That one.
My God!
I mean, I couldn't bring myself to watch it.
It's unbelievable. The lack of self-awareness is epic. Epic. But I wasn't referring to that. When he was asked by the guy, Rio Ferdinand was interviewing him or something like that.
It was his podcast, yeah.
Right, okay. Was that the 5-1 or something like that it's called? I don't know. He was asked, which opponent has caused you most problems? He said, none. No one. This is speaking as a defender for the team that's lost 15 Premier League games this season, mate. But that wasn't the bit I was referring to. He was asked another question, and it was, who were the leaders in the Spurs team? And I'll give you his response. That was his response. He did not answer it.
Oh dear!
How damning! But he probably wanted to say himself, but I'm surprised he didn't. But anyway, sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Carry on.
No, that was far more entertaining. Thank you. But no, that's kind of it, really. I think Steph's covered all the points about. I think those 5 have got it locked down, really, for me. But it will be interesting to see that pack below and the Bournemouths and that fighting Fulham. I'd love to see all of them have a go in Europe. They're all. I've got a bit of a soft spot for all of them.
Well, with United and Spurs flailing as they are, there's a real opportunity for a club, a so-called unfancied club, to make a real push, like Forest have done. They've really picked their moment well.
They've been brilliant.
Forest, that they picked this season. Man City are struggling, so that's a place that's not guaranteed and sewn up. Spurs and United, they're the big 6. You'd imagine they would be part of the conversation, but they're nowhere near it. So it's go on.
This big 6 thing,
So-called.
Is it possibly not really applicable anymore?
Oh, well, I think it is on turnover, isn't it?
Oh well, I mean, if we wouldn't get into that, I just wonder if the likes of the problem is as well, because like you say, Villa have been in the Champions League this year, and maybe their league form has suffered a little bit. Newcastle have obviously been in previously, and then their league form suffered a bit, but those gradual steps, they're always sort of there or thereabouts. There's no real flailing around of their form. They are sort of creeping up to a kind of consistency, whereas one of the big 6, and all right, it's Tottenham and Spurs at the minute, might flail a little bit, and if United don't get it right soon, when do they?
Well, when we were young, it was Everton were part of the big 5.
Yeah, exactly.
So, no one's talking about them as being part of the big 6.
No.
You can clip that and get me into trouble with the other half of the Scousers then.
Well, we play them in a week or 2, so that'll be just in time, won't it?
Thanks.
You'll be outlawed from Liverpool.
It's a bit of a sticky wicket. Toffees.
Oh God, that was that's not so easy to see.
It's by the way, they've just chalked off the 4th goal, so it's back to 3-0.
Oh.
As you were.
Oh. So they have got VAR.
They've got the offside automated. That's what they've got.
Okay. Right. Okay, so that's the top 5. So the next question, I guess, is who are your biggest shocks, maybe negative, and who's your biggest surprise, maybe positive? Chris?
I've got a note for City being, obviously, their downfall has been rather a pleasant surprise. But also I've made a note for Forest, because I actually I had them as being relegated madly way back when we made our predictions, because they were quite erratic.
I didn't know that. You shouldn't. Can you clip that one as well, Steph, please?
Yeah. Clip away. I mean, they were erratic last season. I just remember watching
points
them thinking,
deduction.
Sorry?
2.
Points
Did they get
deduction.
2 points.
Oh, Everton had the 2 points knocked off as well, didn't they?
Crazy.
How many points did they have deducted in the end?
I don't know.
Well, Everton had 6 knocked off, didn't they?
So Forest.
It wasn't that many for Forest.
No, it wasn't.
But they were. I mean, aside from that, they were quite erratic, and I didn't know whether or not they had it about them. But boy, was I wrong. So well done them. It's been fabulous seeing them, and like you said, in a relatively unfashionable team breaking the kind of monopoly, it can only be good.
We say, I have to qualify that by saying Forest have won the European Cup twice.
Yeah.
We haven't.
Well, it brings into question that the definition of a big team, a big club, should I say, doesn't it? Does having a huge stadium a la Man United qualify you as being a big club? All right, they've got the history as well.
Maybe Newcastle.
But there you go. Yeah, I mean...
Are Newcastle a big club? Come on, let's alienate the Geordies again.
Yeah, what are the criteria for being a big club? Answers on a postcard.
Yeah.
It's one of those...
All I know is that Arsenal are a big club. That's all I care about. Okay, so... Steph, biggest shock, surprise, however you want to interpret it?
I'll start with the positive. I mean, I did sort of assume that maybe someone would talk about Forest, but I think, that they are the sort of standout. I think what's interesting for them, they were erratic because they were a bit of a mercenary team, because they clearly were buying here, there, and everywhere, hence the points deduction. But what's stabilised them is the buy-in to Nuno and his way. They're a team in his style, in his image, and it makes you laugh because obviously he was at Spurs, manager of the month. Was it 3 months in a row or something ridiculous like that? But because he didn't play a certain way, the Spurs way or whatever the bloody hell that is, they all got like, oh, this is boring. Because what do Forest do? They sit back, they soak up pressure, and they batter you on the counter-attack, and they're devastating at it when they want to be. And look where they are. So, fair play to them. And that led me to then think about, if Forest are probably going to be talked about, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to Bournemouth, because there's another club with a manager and a group of players where it's all about the buy-in. He's got an ethos in a completely different way. They're not a sit back and hit on the counter kind of side. They're a bit more sort of pressing intensity, sort of careful build-up, brilliant work on the wing from Semenyo, and is it Tavernier? I think he's one of them, the guy.
Where's
came down from
Utara
Scotland.
play?
Utara may be one of them as well, yeah. But, they've got a good sort of squad of just good players who just sort of buy in, and they've just, every time I've watched them, they've just looked really cohesive and pleasant to watch, but also with an intensity, and I think that Areola could be a really good and effective manager. Like you say, the perhaps the disappointing thing is that, like you say, that they are going to end up losing some of those players, and it will perhaps
might end up losing Areola as well.
Well, the manager as well is going to be highly sought after.
Iraola? What's his name?
Iraola.
Yeah.
Spurs. Yeah.
Oh God!
They'll destroy him as well.
They'll destroy him. Yeah, exactly. It's where everyone goes to die.
Reputations die.
Reputations killed. It's just unreal. Bad. Yeah. It's hard to look past. I think it was a 14 game winless run for Manchester City, for in all competitions. Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. We're talking 2-goal lead lost to PSG, losing 5-1.
Three goals to fight. Was it fine? No,
3 goals to
PSV.
5-1 Arsenal. It's such a disappointment from an Arsenal fan perspective that they've spent in January, because obviously they've got so much money, and are able to probably just limp over the line into those Champions League positions. But boy, watching them suffer was mighty fun. And I say that, look, it's tinged. People could listen to this and go, oh, you just, blah, blah. Yeah, we're bitter because they've been so successful for so long, and now they've fallen a bit. I'm going to enjoy that. So it was, and that 5-1 day will live long in the memory. Yeah. Mainly for just the chanting relentlessly.
The Poznan was my highlight. Doing the Poznan.
I mean, it's just, I've never known. Look, there's been games I've been at that have been intense, but the relentlessness at Haaland, brought on all by himself because he's such an arrogant prat that he took it. He was absolutely brilliant on the day. He didn't spit his dummy out or anything like that. They were well beaten. He took it. He left. It's fine. Hopefully we move on. But boy, was that good.
Can I ask you? Why do you think City's season has panned out as it has done?
Well, I mean, because you sent us the questions
injury
prior. Yeah, they were. Rodri injury is massive. Best player in the world in his position, and is clearly a major linchpin to that squad.
I don't think they anticipated quite so many of their senior players going over a cliff as dramatically as they did.
So De Bruyne is nowhere near
bringing back Gundogan, nowhere near as good as he was when he left. Silva, there's just too many of them that, great players, but it's that thing of when you get to a point, and we never know what that age is. Look at Sterling. He's relatively young.
29.
There are players that are 35, 40 still going strong with their, they've just got something about them that keeps, but they all seem to have just dropped off a cliff. Whatever it is, the intensity of their play has just died. And unfortunately for City, at the same time.
Chris, look into the crystal ball. What kind of season do you see them having next year? Let's assume that, like, just ignoring the 115, ignoring that. Just looking at the team they've got now, the signings they've made. What kind of season would you be listing them as your favourites for the Premier League, or joint favourites, or what kind of season do you think?
I mean, I'd be disappointed if they managed to gel, because they are going through a rebuild. So if they manage to buy it and gel everyone in, over the summer and be straight back up there, I would be, unpleasantly surprised. So,
Steph, what do you think? Sorry, Chris.
Got to try and be as objective as possible, but I don't see them being favourites for the title. I don't see them winning it next year.
Steph, what kind of season do you think they'll have next year, based on where they are now?
I think going into next season, it could be one of the most open in terms of predictions and markets and things like that, because of the change. We know as Arsenal fans, we're at a point where, this could be the third season in a row finishing second. Cup competitions are what they are, albeit, Champions League runs or whatever. And so some of the players might get restless. And obviously we're going to be adding to the squad. Whether our additions gel is a factor. News came out just yesterday that basically the deal is being finalised for Trent Alexander-Arnold to go to Real Madrid from Liverpool. So Liverpool, they're going to go out, win the league. But those three players, Trent, Virgil van Dijk and Salah, are at this point. It looks like Trent's going to be going. Still no news on Salah and things. Look, if one of those others go, Van Dijk or Salah, I mean, that's a really different Liverpool side all of a sudden going into the team. Do we think that suddenly United and Spurs are going to be back in the hunt? No. Newcastle aren't going to get much dramatically worse. If they make Champions League, they'll probably keep Isak. If they don't, he'll probably go. Then all of a sudden they're rebuilding. I think it's going to be fascinating going into next season.
The summer's crucial.
It's massive for so many clubs in the run of it, not least Arsenal from our point of view. So,
but on City,
but
do you think Pep still got the fire?
Yes, and I think,
has he got the capacity?
Well, I don't know, because ultimately the other things I've written, I put age as well. Next to Rodri's name, but I've also put this idea, they've had a shallow squad for quite a while, and young players coming through. They let Palmer go, they've let a couple of other youth players come through. Oscar Bob came in for a couple of games, seems to have sort of disappeared. Delap was obviously on their books and has gone. So it's not like, we've had Waneri, we've had Lewis Skelly, Saka. They haven't bedded in young players coming through. The whole thing about building the City complex, if you've ever been to Man City away in recent years, I mean, it's like they've literally built a mini city. Like there's a conveyor belt that should be there from the
Rico Lewis. Rico Lewis is about the only one. Rico
Lewis is the only one, but he's not nailed down a position or a starting berth. So I don't know whether they can't just go out and buy it. The reason
I ask about Pep is because, has he been faced with this before in his managerial career?
Not to this extent.
Having to rebuild, yes, to this extent.
Well, he did it through iterations of City, where he's managed to segue between teams.
World-class players.
I think it's the transition of having so many that he's having to face now, that he's never had to rebuild with probably so many at one in such a short space of time. That's what makes it difficult, is if you can replace players over a season at a time, 2 windows, and you're kind of replacing one, for example, every window, then you're kind of doing it gradually, and it's an easier transition. Whereas what he's faced with now is like, okay, you're kind of starting, it's a major rebuild.
Yeah, and teams have cycles, and their cycle has been pretty incredible.
But it's how you cope with those the transitions into the next phase, into the next iteration of who you are. And I think where we're stronger is that we're not talking about major changes to us. It's like little augmentations to take us to the next level. And we can moan about, if we were fit this year, then would have been a different story, because we have essentially a squad capable.
I was. Just as you were chatting there about Liverpool, Steph, you mentioned like the contract situations with Salah and Van Dijk, and of course I don't think they're good enough to get in the Arsenal team. So,
well, I said, last time we were doing, the mailbag episode, and people asked about Arsenal, Liverpool, and I sort of said that, Trent to Madrid seemed like
done.
the most likely one, and then literally like the day or two after, and all of a sudden it's.
I mean, the issue that Liverpool have is they're not flush with cash, and they're losing a 60-70 million pound player on a free. And he would be pure profit. He's academy kid. He'd be pure profit.
What's the situation with Salah and Dick Van Dijk in terms of what? So they're on. Yeah. They haven't got 1 year left. They're
no.
freeze
They're out of contract.
They're out of contract at the end of the season.
In 9 games' time.
So they're either playing the long game in terms of trying to sign a bumper last, payday at Liverpool, or they are genuinely doing an Arnold.
I cannot imagine a Barcelona or a Real Madrid not or being able to resist the temptation of getting Salah on a free, and if that were the case, I think
Why haven't we heard anything then?
Well, I disagree there, because I think Barcelona actually are starting to get their sort of team together. Rafinha, Lamar, and they're younger, and I think he's at the wrong age for that kind of move, and same sort of goes for Madrid in that sense. Saudi is probably where you're looking. I did wonder, about a season somewhere like Bayern, maybe one of the Italian clubs, possibly.
Yeah.
A PSG have gone young now. They've decided to go away from the Galactico approach.
But if you look at Salah, he loves that club. You can see the affection he has for that club, and how upset he was, which people were reading into when they got knocked out by PSG in the Champions League. I wouldn't be surprised if he signed a 2-year deal. I know that he wanted a 3-year deal, and that's the kind of impasse that they're at.
I just want to say as well, I think Trent loves that club too, but he's won.
No, he's a rat. That's all I've heard today.
Yeah, I know. He's won everything that is possible to win with that club. He came through under Jurgen Klopp. From the outside looking in, I think clearly Klopp going, because there was that moment earlier on in the season when he was hooked and substituted, and Slot and him had a kind of just a discussion, as professional competitors would do, about establishing that thing. So I just think, he's probably thinking, okay, well, they're going to win the league this season. So actually, Madrid come knocking. How many times do you get to say no?
You've got one career.
You've got one career.
Yeah.
He's won everything with Liverpool. Like, I get it.
Also, he doesn't want to spend any more time with Darwin Núñez.
Well, I don't think he will. Even if he stayed at Liverpool, I don't think he would.
Yeah.
How much they shank on him? Something like 60 million?
Yeah. They'll probably get 30-40 million for him now.
Well, I find it funny that there's talk of them offering cash plus Núñez for Isak at Newcastle. If you're Newcastle, you're going, not on your Nelly. Are we going for that deal?
Send a fax back, lol.
Yeah, exactly.
What are they smoking?
Yeah, that's worse than our 40 million and one.
Okay, so that's Man City, sort of. Go on, Steph.
That was my bad surprise. There was just one more bad surprise that I wanted to think, but actually it's no surprise whatsoever, and it's the newly promoted sides.
Yeah,
absolutely just shocking. And it's not necessarily even a fault of their own. I think Ipswich have given it as good a go as they kind of can, I suppose. Southampton, just get in the bin. It's just been pretty limp and pathetic from that point of view. But, and again, stepping back, the disparity now, Premier League and the Championship. You're looking at coming up this season. Sheffield United are in the running, Leeds are in the running. Burnley have barely conceded a goal in the Championship.
Well, that's the thing. It's there's that almost limbo area, because the parachute payments are such that the 3 demoted clubs, relegated clubs, have such a vastly
they have an advantage.
Enhanced budget over every other club in that division, that they're most likely to come straight back up again. But then the gap to the rest of the Premier League, Everton can be grateful that there's a gap
And
because
Wolves,
they could have slipped down, but that's not happening. Wolves, I think, are Wolves 5 points clear at the moment. So I think Southampton's season is all about not finishing with the lowest tally. They've got 2 points to get or something to beat Derby's tally or to match it.
Poor old Aaron.
Three out of his 4 clubs he's been relegated with.
Ugh.
But he won't be at Southampton next year. Is it Tyler? Is it dribbling or dibbling? I can't remember. They're talking about huge amount of money for him, but he won't be playing in it. He won't be playing in the Championship next season. I didn't realise, but he actually went to Chelsea already as a youngster, but got homesick and went back to Southampton. I think I read that he's actually had a foray away. Who else did that? Someone else did that and went back.
Holmes.
But no, I can't remember.
I mean, he's a kid at the time.
Yeah, he was very, very young because he's very, very young now.
Yeah, he's sensitive to that.
He's okay. So you mentioned something earlier, Steph, about Manchester United don't need the Champions League because of how vast they are and they're a money-making machine, but they are skint as well. And just to give you an indication on, I looked up prize money for the season. So anticipated prize money for the season. It's quite interesting. Bearing in mind we're still in the quarterfinals of the Champions League and United and Spurs can both win the Europa League still. They're both in that competition. But we're likely to get £170 million in prize money for finishing second in the Premier League. We're guaranteed £84 million prize money in the Champions League so far. We'll get an extra 12 million for reaching the semi-final and an extra 15 million for reaching the final. Okay, so 84 million is guaranteed.
So we're getting 84 million then, yeah?
So we're getting 84 million. If I thought that, I wouldn't have looked up what the prize money was for winning it. 21 million, an extra 21 million for winning it. So 84 plus 20, 105 million for winning it. But okay, just based on where we are at the moment, Liverpool's anticipated prize money for the season, all competitions, is 255 million. Our anticipated prize money for the season, all competitions, so that's quarter-final in the Champions League, is 254 million, only 1 million behind Liverpool, right?
What, and they made the Carabao Cup final?
Yeah, I wrote it down somewhere. It's like a few £1,000s and a couple of pennies, it's so small.
A crate of Carabao.
Yeah. This is just prize money, so they'll obviously got more for ticket, match day sales,
Yeah, sure,
ticket, so there's more money there. It's not, but this is just prize money. Manchester United are in 8th place in the league for prize money, all competitions, 152 million. That's over 100 million less than us. So, and this is not a one-off season for them, So they're going to have a similar season next season unless they win the Europa League. And I'm hoping that I think they've got Lyon in the next round. I'm hoping they get dumped out in the next round. As I hope Spurs get dumped out. I think Spurs are playing a German team. I'm not sure. I've not been bothered to look it up. But the prize money for the Europa League, I've written it down somewhere. It's not important. Sod it. Don't care. Europa League. It's for Thursday nights, not for us. Is it Thursday nights on Channel 5 was the chant, wasn't it? Back along. So £100 million this season, just in prize money. Now, I know United's matched... Oh, no, hang on. I should have looked up match day revenue. Who's got the highest match day revenue? Because we're up there. Well, we're up there. We're not far behind them for match day revenue. And United have 75,000 seater stadiums. They get an extra 25% on us, haven't they? So, and of course with Radcliffe getting rid of concessions and their match day revenue is going to go up.
Jim Reaper.
The Jim Reaper, I do like that. Did you make that
up?
I
can't take credit for that. I'd read it or saw it somewhere. It's good, isn't it?
The Jim Reaper.
The Jim Reaper.
That's my new favourite nickname now. That's good.
I'd have more sympathy for United if they weren't paying the likes of Casemiro a lottery win every week. Sorry, you get no sympathy from me. They've wasted so much money on so many shit players.
Jadon Sancho's a mad one because they're still paying, I think, something like £7 or £8 million of his salary this season. They're paying.
Of course they are. They paid
Chelsea
14 million quid to get rid of Dan Ashworth.
Chelsea have got an obligation to buy Sancho for 25 million, but all I'm reading is that they're going to pay the £5 million forfeit to United to send him back to United.
Wow.
I know.
And I don't mind Jadon Sancho. I mean, look, but like, what is going on there? There is definitely
cautionary tale.
But there's a player there.
Is there though? There was in Dortmund.
He was brilliant in Dortmund.
I get Jermaine Pennant vibes from him.
Really? Okay.
I didn't know he was on the pitch against us.
Well, no.
Was he on the pitch?
Yes.
I'm saying that. I'm like,
yes,
he did play, didn't he?
He came off as a sub. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the problem with United then?
Where'd you start? We've been recording for how long?
Do you think Amorim should be given time? They've been worse since he's arrived at the club. Do you think that he should be given time? Do you think? I mean, what's the solution? If you're a United fan, you must be like pulling your hair out because it's like Groundhog Day over and over again. So do you just like? I mean, what I would do, I would just chuck the kids at it. You know, I'd say invest in youth, promote the youth. You have the fans on your side. There'll be no expectation. Pressure's completely off. But articulate that to the, disclose that to the fan base. Like, be open about that. People have buy-in with that straight away. You'd have the fans on board, and you'd unearth a few gems, I'm sure. And then gradually, that's what I would do. But is that United?
That's it, isn't it? There'll always be a clamour for a marquee signing along, you'll have this policy of youth, but then that urge to have short-term success will always mean, we'll just go and splash 100 million. There you go, there's a star. And they've indulged the managers that they've had in recent years, to the extent that there just doesn't seem to be any joined-up thinking, like with, what's his face, the old Ajax boss.
Ten Hag.
Thank you. Was just bringing in his old mates from Ajax. It was just, there was no joined up thinking. It was
that's under the Jim Reaper's tutelage as well. So is anything going to change?
First word I wrote down, because you asked us about, let's think about City, Spurs and United, where it's got wrong. First word I wrote down was arrogance. United still have this arrogance, like they've got this divine right to be at the top table and have success. And like you said, there's no joined up thinking, because the turnover is so high from match day revenue, from shirt sales around the world, and from the name Manchester United, that there does need to be a little bit of humility. And actually, when you think of the kids that they've wasted, Rashford is a player that's clearly got something in him and just needed to be, like, I don't know, freed up or treated differently, possibly. I don't particularly know. There's even rumours that Kobbie Mainoo may be surplus to requirements. Whether that's just a kind of balance in the books kind of thing, fine, that whole pure profit PSR thing. But actually, like you say, long term, bin off Casemiro. Finally get rid of Anthony. Eriksen. Gee, honestly,
I think Eriksen's out of contract in the summer, but I think, has Casemiro got another year?
I don't care.
But no one will take him. They'll have to pay. They'll have to pay. Yeah, but he's on like 350 grand a week.
That's kind of the problem. What happened? Look, I hate to sort of relate it to Arsenal, but that was what Arteta did and had to do. We had to have that clear out. We all bemoaned the fact that we were paying off these contracts because it seemed like such a waste, and why couldn't we sell? But there comes a point where you just go, no, it's costing us way more having you here, poisoning whatever we're trying to achieve, than it is paying you this extra amount and waiting for some mythical buyer that's not there to come in and rescue us. So go away. We're going to invest in the youth. Look at the young players we've brought through. Look at the young players that United must have access to. Okay, all right, we say they've pinched one or two of ours, but that goes on. These youth players, horse trading here and there. Look at City getting rid of Cole Palmer. It happens. And so, like you say, they would buy in. United love their young players. Yeah. We all like a shiny new toy.
Their record is incredible. They've not
squad,
named a starting 11 without an academy product in something like 60 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's mental.
So they would absolutely buy into it. And look at that league table this season. It cannot get much worse without being bloody relegated. Like, you have to think. I mean, you asked, what does Amarin do? He gets his head tested because I can understand him wanting the United job. Don't see necessarily a problem with that. Taking it mid-season after, like, you've had like Ten Hag getting in his old mates and not making work.
They said take it or leave it. They said we want you now. He asked to stay. They said
he
no.
needed more backbone because he was just going into the fight. And also United, why are they offering a take it or leave it? Arrogant again. They're so arrogant. They can't just have Van Nistelrooy, steady the tiller until the end of the season, which was amounting to quite little anyway. All right, the Europa League they're still in, this, that, and the other, and then bring him in the summer because he's such a dogmatic manager playing a certain way. This 3-4-3 formation, he has to do that with a clean slate. It's just madness. And just these stories of sacking the tea ladies and getting rid of the concessions. No one is coming out of this season with any credit at United.
Well, he's not. It's quite incredible to think he was like the knight in shining armour riding in to rescue the club. And to think he's fallen so far.
I mean, I keep saving headlines where he's criticising the players and the club. The last one I think we had was when we played them in the league, and in the run-up, it was around the time of the Europa League game, so they played Sociedad, and they said, will the Europa League save your season? He's like, nothing can save our season. He hates us more. He hates them more than we do. Talking about playing a 63-year-old goalkeeping coach before Marcus Rashford. I mean, it's just beggars belief. And we're the banter club, apparently.
Yeah. Yes, because they've got all the United lovies in the media, haven't they? Gary Neville and Ferdinand and that lot, Roy Keane. They still think they're the same club. United, the same club that they left 20 years ago.
Well, that's what this stadium project is about. It's vanity. It's pure vanity, and I don't get it. If I was a United fan, I'd be on protest with them. It's awful.
I have found for getting to the quarterfinal of the Europa League, United's prize money is £12 million.
Casemiro's wages.
I was going to say, yeah.
Well, for a couple of months. Compare that 12 million then to 84 million in the Champions League. It's mad, and with an extra 2 games, matchday games as well. One home game, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Spurs. Can we do a little bit on Spurs?
Well, it's just injuries, mate. It's just the injuries. Nothing else.
Except it's not.
It's nothing else. It's just the injuries.
Listen, it's his second season, and he always wins in his second season, and they can still win the Europa League, so that's still on.
I will not enjoy that.
Well, at least I can't have both United and Spurs winning because that's the worst case scenario.
Holly,
United,
right?
Spurs,
Let's do it.
Okay.
United Spurs final. What you do? Where are you going?
Ooh.
Well, because the winner is in the Champions League, so I'd have to go. I think getting to the Champions League could really benefit United. I think they'd take advantage of that more than Spurs would because they'd keep Postecoglou. They'd keep him.
Yeah.
And they'd screw it up next season anyway, and that'd be spectacular. So I'd go Spurs, and that's on the basis that I have. Oh God!
There's my clip.
I'd go United.
Cover yourself. That's it.
For balance.
I mean, obviously, if in some way we could magic it up so they could both lose. That's the ideal scenario, but blimey, yeah. I don't even know if they're on the same side of the draw. Is it like the Champions League?
No, they can meet in the final. I think they can meet in the final. I'm hopeful that doesn't happen. Let's put it that way. I don't want to have to make that decision. But I don't know. And again, like watching Liverpool-Newcastle in the League Cup final, I won't know until the game starts and the first incident happens, the first near chance goal, and how will I emotionally react to that moment? That's when I'll know which team I want to lose most. It won't be win, it'll be lose most. Of course, the FA Cup's still on. Man City can still win the FA Cup. I mean, it's the most open of FA Cups. Fulham, Bournemouth.
I hope anyone,
Brighton,
bar
anyone
City,
but City.
Anyone
of course.
but City, yeah, ABC.
I mean, when who did Wigan? Was it Wigan that beat City in
They
the FA
did.
Cup final?
Ben Watson header.
Martinez was their manager.
Got relegated in the same season.
Same season, yeah. They probably beat us though.
No, we beat them at home because I was at that game as a Red member, and we beat them, and that was the game that mathematically sunk them. But they won the FA Cup, so they cared not.
Indeed. I think we're done.
We didn't really hit on Spurs. Look, injuries have been massive for them, but there's lots of talk about them, about Ange's tactics, that he plays in such a way that he puts undue pressure on. It's all his defenders that get crocked because they're playing in the opposition half and always having to run back because they get beaten in their press and they don't really know what they're doing. So, look, it all comes down to Ange. He's just belligerent and weird, and I don't get it. They've also invested terribly, and they've got a hodgepodge bunch of players. Some young players come through and then some don't. Like Jed Spence was out in the cold, and all of a sudden he's back, like first choice fullback's weird.
Well, as per that interview I referenced earlier, he didn't. When he arrived from Forest at Spurs, they shipped him out because of his attitude, and you can see that coming through quite clearly
with the shades
in that interview.
In the studio, yeah.
Oh my God! Yeah. Like get a hold of yourself. Spurs. What Spurs player would get in the Arsenal 11?
The only one, the last time that a player of theirs impressed me, I mean Van der Ven. Van der Ven's defending.
On the bench.
When we drew... Oh, no, we beat them... Do you remember when we beat them 3-2 last season? We went 3-0 up really quickly, and then in the second half, we gifted them a couple of bits.
3-2, yeah.
Well, Van der Ven came on late on, because he had been injured, obviously. And we were hoping to play Martinelli to hit them on the counter, but he's so rapid. It was unreal. I mean, Kulusevski was the other one I was going to mention. He's quite a tidy little player.
I'd take a couple of their kids. Archie Gray is a very good player. I saw him at Leeds. He's really, really good there. I can't pronounce his name. Is he Swedish?
Bergvall,
that's it. Yeah, he looks really good. Got a bit of an edge to him as well, which I like.
Considering
and then they got their
so
kid.
Young, yeah.
And they got the youngster, the Mickey. He's like
I know the one you mean.
the Wanyeri for Spurs.
Yeah. Did he score in the Europa League? Was that him? That one? I can't remember.
Say his name.
Really
I can't remember his name.
So basically, what you're saying is that you'd take a 2 or 3 Spurs players in our team, but not Liverpool.
Apart from Diaz and Gravenberch
and Salah
in the middle. Definitely not Salah. He's past it, mate.
Well, look, I manifested a deal for Trent to Madrid, so here's hoping that all of a sudden Al Nassr or Etikafak or whatever they're called in Saudi Arabia suddenly announced that they've struck a deal with Salah for next season. That's what we need.
I can't see Salah and Van Dijk both going. But if you want, as an Arsenal fan, if you want one of them to go, it would be Salah because he's the match winner, the difference maker. But again, you're losing £100 million player for nothing, and you've got to spend that amount. And Liverpool aren't, bathing in large amounts of cash. I mean, I don't know. Liverpool are an attractive club, an attractive destination for a player. Of course they are. The fans, the passion, the history, absolutely. If you're a player, that's one of your top 5 or 6. You won't clip this bit though, will you, for the Liverpool fans? One of the top 5 or 6 kind of destinations. Your Real Madrid, your Barcelona, lesser degree maybe your Bayern Munich. Manchester United of old definitely would have been a destination club. And Liverpool would be up there with the elite of kind of club destinations for any player. So Isak may well fancy a move to Liverpool, but can Liverpool
cough up the cash?
Yeah. Can they compete with us? They're a smaller club than us, aren't they? Obviously, so that
Nunez swap deal is.
Have Arsenal women won the game? Is it over?
Yeah, they're through.
3-0, brilliant, excellent, fantastic. Yeah. So that's really good. Anything else to say? I've got one more sign-off
Do it.
Bit of news, right? It's Mikel Arteta's 43rd birthday today, so happy birthday, Mr. Manager. 40
He's a child.
Oh my God!
Me and him would have been at school together.
Ridiculous.
Is that it? We're done. Have we offended everybody?
Hopefully.
Well, anyway, thanks for the chat. We've gone over an hour. Woohoo! Told you it'd be a short one, Chris. Chris has been asleep for the last 20 minutes. He's nodded.
Just
off.
Painted my eyes onto my eyelids.
Well, I come alive at this point because I'm obviously a freaking vampire. But anyway. Anyway, thanks for the chat, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll do a preview for Fulham at the weekend at some point. Have a great time. Until then, cheerio. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye. The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at North Bank Pod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by The Podcast Company.